Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Easter instead of these results and predictions for the guide around for the AFL 2026. Welcome aboard. Hello. What a huge Easter round of preview of footy with all those reviews. We have blowouts, upset, and one of the 1 point fillers, what I think is the game of the round. We will have all my predictions of that gather round right here, well, in South Australia for round 5. We'll have Aiden's reviews from Easter as well. Aiden sharing his previews for gather round. Sit back, relax, welcome back once again. Let's get into it. So I'm going to break it down and how I would go my best on grounds. I'm not going to do stacks on over and who I think. I think these players deserve to be these. But first up, well done Brisbane taking the 119-65 victory. Brisbane dominating. We kick off at the gala round as well between the Brisbane Lions and Collingwood Magpies. And I may not seen a lot of this game, but in fact, I think it was great dominated from Brisbane. They knew they can start well and finish strong. And a statement win from Brisbane deserved this. Yes, missing key players. And first win at home for the Brisbane Lions. They're back in their homes. Since opening round, it's, being a bit sluggy. And against St Kilda at Marvel and, their confidence. But Chris, Daniel Mastay, and then Houston from Collingwood and Lockie Neal, Colin Coldman, and Zach Bailey, all from Brisbane Best. Top 3 players, not by stats or anything like that. I think these 3 best players from each team dominated. Massive win, first win for the season, and big confident boost. All right, let's get to the next game. Well, we hit to game 2 out of game 1 of Good Friday football between North Melbourne Kangaroos and the Carlton Blues Footy Club. Melbourne got it done. 96-86 win. Their first win for Good Friday over Carlton. Standouts Luke Davis Ginkan, George Wiley, and Craig Daniel. And they're from North Melbourne. And Patrick Cripps, Sam Walsh, and Harry Mackay from Carlton. This is not just a statement. This is showing that North Melbourne want to win games. And they got it. They got the job done. And congratulations to North Melbourne. They are looking a North Melbourne team that I'm not seen in years. Same with their supporters. Well-earned, hard win. Not easy. They have to work hard for these wins. Defence wins games. Tagging football speed. Goal after goal after goal. Well done to North Melbourne. I back you. I've backed Brisbane. Good start for my footy tipping. But how did it change from there? We'll find out very soon. But really think that North Melbourne did really well over Carlton. Carlton had their moments, of course. They fought hard. They were in front. And really, Carlton was front very much of the game. And North Melbourne were far away. So, well done to North Melbourne. Always. All the best against a very good solid side Brisbane in guard around. And Carl will face Adelaide Crows. All right, on to the next game. And this is not just a battle of all. This is the road victory to Western Australia, to Adelaide, South Australia. But look at the standout from Jordan Dawson, Lockie McAndrew, and Wayne Miller from the LA Crows, and Andrew Bradshaw, Josh Tracy, and Colin Strong. This is not just an upset, but this is one to go down to the wire. Fremantle shrunk home by 2 points. They were winning by up to about 4 goals. 5 goals, Fremantle. And something just Adelaide had to lift in that in that third quarter. They were spoiling Adelaide. But their skills were not great. We know that Adelaide can play well. When you have 48,000 plus screaming, that's a big effort. But when you are not performing well, there's a lot going on. Quite a lot of the Fremantle on the win, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And I'm a little concerned. It's a little bit concerned that how much that Fremantle wanted it. They wanted that. They win the footy in the middle. That's how it works. And I went to this game, but believe it's happening. And we're up. Adelaide by 10 points, but Fremantle found a way. We just couldn't attack in our defence. We're working harder now. That Adelaide are the team were the lookout from last year. Not an easy feature for the LA Crows, and only losing by less than 10 points. This is the lowest margin against the Dogs, then the Cats. The Cats are the highest, Dogs, Western Bulldogs, what I mean. And our Fremantle Dockers. From 2 at home, the Adelaide Oval, and 1 in Geelong, there's some brave efforts. But we're going to start well. Adelaide will take on Carlton. Fremantle will take on Collingwood. Adelaide Oval. Both teams will play Adelaide Oval. What a game there will be. Here we go. Next game. Okay, it's the football. And we're on the first out of 2. We've got only 2 games on the Saturday schedule. Well, I can't say Richmond and Port Adelaide, really both teams are going to struggle this year, but not this Richmond one that we beat, but Port Adelaide will be unsure. Port Adelaide power too strong here, 98-48. Biggest winners there. It wasn't just a win, it was a dominating performance. The players stood up for Richmond Tigers of Ben Miller, Jacob Hobber, and James Short, the 2 experienced players for the Tigers. And then Port Adelaide with Dusty, Burn Jones, Justin Horn, Francis, and Jordan Sweet all dominate for Port Adelaide. And it's always a really good thing that Port Adelaide can win at the MCG. And even they can go all try their best. They're missing some key players, Port Adelaide. No different than Richmond. And good effort from Richmond. Really fine effort. He didn't lose, heavy. He didn't get the other team to score 100 plus. So that's a really good result. But that's all right. I won't say too much about this game just to continue on. But I think this was a really good win for Port Adelaide. And Magic Josh Carr. Be very happy with this win. Very, very happy at the MCG. With Richmond, you get the Tiger supporters around each other. Get around this team because you'll get stronger. And trust. Just trust. And it will come. And I know the result will come. All right. Well on to the 3 each team's stand-up players for this game. Here we are, the next game. Saturday night football in perfect off the stadium between the West Coast Eagles Sydney Swans. I'm not going to say too much. The stand blow after Sydney destroyed West Coast Eagles. That's it. That's the word I'm going to really put on that. It was not the Easter battle. If you're going to start a season on a very good notice, go fit. And this is what Sydney coming off of bye. They wanted to show, yeah, West Coast have improved. They've shown they'll get some good notices. But Archie, Reid, William, Dersma, and Tim Kelly stand up for West Coast, and Tom Buckley, Isaac Heaney were on his return, and Brody Grundy as well for Sydney, Sydney's best three. After 2 weeks off, Sydney just came to Perth and just seemed like West Coast have very improved. And confidence, knowing that West Coast will come back home and show their supporters what they can be made of. I can't say too much because West Coast got destroyed everywhere in a lot of ways. So well done on Sydney Swans, big win there. And West Coast, just do your best next week against the Cats. Sydney Swans will face and go around on the AFL app. We have the Sydney Swans will face. Try to get the AFL up and running. Okay. Unsure exactly what the teams who playing who. The outfit's been a bit strange lately, so I do absolutely apologise for any situation. So the Sydney Swans will play someone in, fortunately, not showing the stats and stuff like that. So for any delayed, I do apologise. But Sydney Swans will play in Adelaide and in Galloway, and I'm unsure which team. If I know the other team will play Sydney Swans, stay tuned. I'm hoping I've got all that data correct. But well done to Sydney on the biggest wins. And West Coast, heads up, you play Geelong, be another chest. All right, on to the next game. Amount of domination. And I understand it is the Gold Coast Suns will play Sydney Swans, but hope that is all correct. Melbourne, I am absolutely unsure. But this is what Melbourne, they're playing smart football and they took a 20-point victory. They were down Melbourne and they found a way. The dominators from the Demons, Tom Sparkroy, Jake, Mint, Shell, and Matt Scorn from the Standard from the Demons. And the Gold Coast, Will Graham, John Noby, and Will Graham. So this is what let's just say right now. Melbourne are looking very good. This is a very different Melbourne team. We have not seen in years. In actual years, Melbourne are the team to look out in season 2026. The first half. That's the first half for now. But have we have a massive upset? Absolutely we do. A 20-point victory. Take it. Melbourne. Gold Coast heads up, you're missing some key players. And that's happened. And it hurts. But we know that you'll bounce back to hopefully to get another win at Ganaround. And hopefully we see some stars for the Gold Coast Suns and Melbourne. They'll face Essendon. It should be a good game. All right, next game. Here we go. Nothing else to say, but really interesting to say. It's not a blowout game for this between these two. 34-point victory to the Western Bulldogs. And that's hit on rolling. Conveying Western Bulldogs victory there. Baydale, Matthew Kennedy, and the Mungus dominating from the Bulldogs, from the Bombers, Jacob Fall, Zach Merritt, and Archer Roberts from Essendon's best. I can't say too much that Essendon will bounce and will respond and not get huge big embarrassment losses. But they stay in the contest. I tell you right now, Essendon look alright. But not with the results, but the Dogs, they dominated and they look really strong. They look really, really, really strong. They're looking very, very, their list is really the best. And they're in the right mindset now, the Dogs. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do in season 2026 and coming through this year, including go around. So Essendon will take on Melbourne. The Dogs are unsure. The app's not been a friend of seeing what games there is. But well done to the Western Bulldogs. Heads up Essendon. All the best for the go around. All right, on to the next game. And final game, this is the game of the round. 1 point victory, the game of the round, as I mentioned just before. Hawthorn and Geelong, Easter Monday 40 at the MCG. Absolute classic, that's the word. Josh Warren, Dylan Moore, and Connor McDonald. For Geelong, Max Holmes, Charnol, and Lawrence Humphreys from Geelong's best. I watched the last 2 minutes of this game. And I'm going to say, I thought Geelong had it. Geelong had this game. They keep accuracy. Geelong and Hawthorn didn't. Geelong, on the other hand, do have chances to win games like this. After that 8-point win, I was a little concerned. And knowing that Hawthorn will come out. Hawthorn are back. And I tell you right now, that looked dangerous. Geelong, on the other hand, they gave it all. They win at halftime. That man, I just mentioned, Charnol, the key forward for Geelong, kicked a beauty on the halftime siren. That's where I saw it. And then I didn't watch the third quarter. But I tell you right now, Hawthorn are still very, very strong. But very strong. And that's all I think of my thoughts here on the Hawks and the Cats. They didn't win their 60 football, but the Hawks actually put their 60 football night. Geelong did at times. So, well on to the 3 center players as well, congratulations on them, and Hawthorn was the 1-point victory. Okay. You can see on your screen Adelaide, Fremantle, Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, Hawthorn, Geelong, GWS Giants, and St Kilda. Let me know your tips in the comments. But that's my Gather predictions. And there you go.
Hello again, everybody. This is Aiden for the BJ Show. Now, it is already round 4, or it's coming up to round 5 of the 2026 AFL season. It's coming up to Gather Round this week in Adelaide. Now, obviously, I've been away the first couple of weeks of the season, but now I'm back and ready to go, giving you my weekly thoughts every week through this on the Thursday night. I work with some pretty much every week on a Thursday night now, but this is the Easter Thursday game, the Holy Thursday game between Brisbane and Collingwood. And we're going to get straight into that one now. So Brisbane winning this one at a score 17-17, 119. Collingwood 10-5, 65. And the game had a big story coming out of it from even before the first throw. So Nick Daicos showed up was going through his warm-ups, pulled up sore, tried everything he could to get on the park, but just couldn't in the end. And that was the end of the game before it even started. Collingwood just looked completely lost without Nick Daicos. It is very fair to say that there is two teams. There is the Collingwood with Nick Daicos, and there is a Collingwood without Nick Daicos. Brisbane very much all over Collingwood from the beginning of this one. It was very, very much all in the hands of the Lions throughout the game, quarter by quarter, 6 goals to 3, then 3 goals to 2, 2 goals to 3. So Collingwood come back a little bit. In that third quarter, and then the final quarter was a real runaway for Brisbane, 6 goals to 2. That's how we get 17-17, 119, 10-5, 65. Now, Brisbane played an absolutely outstanding game. I cannot take that away from them. Winning against Collingwood, who I all think will be around the mark, if not in that wildcard spot, come the end of the home and away season. The thing with Brisbane that I find right now is they've finally clicked. This has been the problem with Brisbane that the last couple of years, their premiership run has been, can we win the big games early? And that's been a real concern. The last 2 years, I've looked pretty dodgy the first couple of weeks, I have to say. But this year, they've got it right on the big stage against another contending rival. Now, player of the game for me here, I have to give it to Zach Bailey. He was just everywhere. Whenever he needed to be at a spot, Bailey is going to be my player of the game. 112 fantasy, 2 goals, 25 touches, 17 kicks, 8 handballs, 7 marks, 3 tackles for him on Thursday night. Now we move over to Marvel for the Good Friday game between North Melbourne and Carlton, and this one looked like it was going to be all one way in the early part of this game. Carlton, it was cut up by a point at quarter time, 3-3 to 3 for the Blues. North come back hard in the second. Well, they stay behind, but they get the better of the scoring chances. They go to 5-7 to Carlton's 6-4. So North easily could have had the lead at halftime. Second quarter, Carlton all over the game. This looked like it was over. Carlton were going to win the game at this point. They had 5 goals, 3 to North's 2 goals, 2 in the third quarter. And then Carlton absolutely collapse in the last. North kicking 7 goals, 3 in the last quarter, 2-1, as they get rolled again this year. This is it's the third time out of 4. Should have been 4 and 4 that have been rolled late. Carlton in a real disarray at the moment. They do get rolled by North Melbourne from 20 to 26 up in the third quarter. North, come on, win this one. North, come on, win this one by 10. In a big, big win by the Kangas. This is, it's a big win for the Kangaroos. It's also a big loss for the Blues. This is, as I said, the third time in the opening month of play. Carlton has been up at halftime, been up at three-quarter time, been very much in the contest, and just complete by the Kangas. This was a very impressive win by the Kangas, the way they just stayed to their system and got themselves over the line. Now, my player of the game here in this one, I'm going to give it to Caleb Daniel for the Kangaroos. 115 AFL fantasy. Obviously doesn't score as a defender, but 27 touches, 16 kicks, 11 handballs and 10 marks for Caleb Daniel. So a triple-double there for him as well. So that is a great performance for him. Second, I think I'd have to give it to Cooper Trembeth. 93 fantasy, 3 goals, only 11 touches again, but he's a forward ruck. So 3 goals, 7 kicks, 4 handballs, 6 marks, 4 tackles, 11 hit-outs. And those are my 2 players of the game. Then we have the second Good Friday game from Adelaide Oval. This is Adelaide versus Fremantle on Good Friday night. Now, Fremantle come into this as a team who I tipped. I did tip Fremantle in this one. I just thought Adelaide just aren't there. They're just not the same. I was proven absolutely right, then absolutely wrong, then absolutely right when it was all said and done. Fremantle nearly binned another one. Let's get straight into the scores. Quarter by quarter we go for Adelaide versus Fremantle. So in the first quarter, we have 3 goals to the Crows, 4 goals to the Dockers. The second quarter, Crows 1 goal, Dockers 4 goals. Now, Fremantle is up at this point, looking very, very good, looking like a team who's going to win the game by a country mile. And they get the better start in the third as well. They had only one goal in the quarter. Crows, though, get 5 in that third quarter. So now going to the final quarter, it is Adelaide it is Adelaide 9-5 to Fremantle 9-9. Final scores here. Fremantle were right on the ropes. Adelaide came back hard. Adelaide 11-10-76. Fremantle saved by Captain Pearce 11-12-78. Fremantle realising they wanted this more. Fremantle realising that they were in a position to win a game and not throw it away. Because once they've done that, that is going to open a lot of eyes for them this season. Because when they were at Geelong in week 1, we think back to week 1 when they played the Cats. 36 points up against Geelong, nearly got into the 40s against the Cats. Been that. This could have been a similar situation if it wasn't for Alex Pearce saving the day for the Dockers at the end of the game. Adelaide, though, I am starting to get a little bit worried about. Just this is a team where I've been saying that they put all their eggs into the beat Collingwood at the MCG basket, which they've done. They got a big tick on that one, but then poor performance against the Doggies, poor performance against the Cats, poor performance against the Dockers. So 4 teams they're going to be seeing in September, only 1 win. This is a far cry from the team last year who was very good against top 8 opponents. Now, my player of the game is for Fremantle. It is Alex Pearce. I'm not going to have to go over his stats. I just have to look at that one moment where he absolutely did save the day. The Dockers smothering the shot at goal to keep Fremantle ahead in the dying stages. And for that reason, Alex Pearce is my player of the game in Adelaide versus Fremantle. Saturday footy started off at the MCG for Richmond versus Port Adelaide. And this one was one of 2 teams down the bottom end of the table. Now, Port, we've seen how good they can be because of what they did against Essendon earlier in the year. Richmond, another team on the rise. Port, a team on the fall, though. It's a battle of risers and fallers at the MCG. The final scores, though, Richmond 6-12-48. Port Adelaide a non-starter in this one. Even Port was a non-starter in this one. First quarter, very bad. Richmond 1 point to Port Adelaide 1-6. This game could have been over at quarter time if Port were a little bit more accurate at goal. Then second quarter, Richmond 3 goals, Port 4 goals. Then Richmond 1 goal in the third, Port 3 in the third, Richmond 3 in the third, Richmond 2 in the last 2, 5 in the last 4. Port Adelaide, they go out and win this one, 42 points. Richmond, a team with a lot of injuries and a lot of young players. Now, the young players being injured means the depth is exposed. Those second-level players come in, those guys who are real VFL players and not probably players we'd say are at the AFL standard have to come in and fill those spots. And that's one of the things about having a young list is you've got the young AFL talent there, but when those young players are unavailable, you have to fill it with state league talent. Now, Richmond, this is sort of the result I expected from them. I think Port are still showing signs of being capable. They were definitely capable against Essendon. They should have beaten West Coast as well, but they just didn't get over the line against West Coast. They do here against Richmond, and as I said, Port showing signs of life still. I still don't think they're going to count too much come the end of the year, although with the finals now being a top 10, those 9 and 10 spots are absolute gold. 9 and 10 spots are absolute gold. So if the Power will get into one of them, they would still be a finals team, although I don't see it happening. We'll get straight into my player of the game here in this one. And my player of the game here is for the Power. I'm going to give it to DBJ, Darcy Byrne-Jones. Really solid effort across the park here. 107. Well, we move now into our second game on Saturday. And our second game on Saturday was a night game across the country, but it was a twilight game in West Australia, West Coast versus Sydney, and this one was an absolute horror show from the jump. Quarter by quarter, West 6-2, 2 goals in the second for West Coast, 7 for the Swans, 1 goal in the third to 7. As I said, another 7 for the Swans in the third quarter, then 1 goal in the last for West Coast and Sydney. 4 goals, 9 in that last quarter when they were just throwing everything at goal to see what would stick. Now, this one, I don't think that we have to do too much of a conversation about, more of a autopsy report on. This was West Coast, a team who have done really well playing against some of the lower teams, getting that reality check of who's who around here in the AFL. Sydney far, far, far the class above. This one really wasn't much of a contest at all from a West Coast perspective. This was a poor performance from them. Not to say that Sydney were good. Sydney were great. Sydney had a great game. West Coast also had one of those performances where young players are still finding their footing in the AFL. That's the real golfing class. Final scores, 4-11-35, 24-19, 163. The Sydney Swans won this one by 128 points. So that's not just a 100, that's a 120 plus here, nearly a 130. So Sydney definitely a team who are putting themselves on the map again under Dean Cox. West Coast definitely a team who are putting themselves on the map again under Dean Cox. West Coast, this is a hard loss for them, but they will come back and they will rebuild from this, and they will be again contending against some of the lower teams in the continuation of the season. Player of the game for me in this one, there's so many good options here, there really is. But Keeney, now Isaac Keeney, 126 AFL fantasy, 4 goals, 26 touches, 16 kicks, 10 handballs, 8 marks, and 2 tackles. Now, if we go down the ranking points, Jai Sarong has a triple-double for the Swans, so 105 AFL fantasy, 1 goal, 27 touches, 16 kicks, 11 handballs, 27 touches, 16 kicks, 11 handballs, 10 marks, and 1 tackle for Jai Sarong here in this one. So West Coast are going to look to rebuild off of this. Sydney just putting themselves right in the mix with a win like that. They are definitely a team to look out for in season 2026. Let's get straight into our Sunday footy. So Sunday, we kicked off at the MCG with Melbourne versus Gold Coast, and this one was a real shock. Melbourne, still a team with a lot of question marks about them, a lot of doubts surrounding them still. They moved on from Petrarca and Oliver, but they did bring in a Jack Steele, and I think Jack Steele at this point can be considered an absolute ill. He has been a star for Melbourne in the opening couple of games. One of my favourite players to watch in this first month of the year. He has come in and he has provided the workload of Petrarca and Oliver with help of the new midfield, Windsor, players around them. So the new midfield for Melbourne, really, we get rid of Petrarca and Oliver, but then we bring in Windsor and we bring in Steele. And now this is a midfield group again who are very strong. This is interesting because they played Gold Coast, no Petrarca for Gold Coast. Gold Coast play Melbourne without Christian Petrarca. A lot of stuff was made about this game when it came out on the table early for Gold Coast this week. Now, you know who was available? A lot of other people. So stop dwelling about the one player who may or may not have been there, ended up not being there, and think about who was there now. Quarter by quarter, Gold Coast right in top early. 2-4 in the opening term for the Gold Coast Suns. Then in the second quarter, Melbourne come out with 6 in the second quarter, 2-4 for Gold Coast. Coming out of half-time, Melbourne had 5, Gold Coast had 4. Melbourne are suddenly in position to beat Gold Coast. Melbourne are a strong team if this keeps up. Let's look at the final quarter. Melbourne finished 16-13, 109. Gold Coast 14-5, 89. Melbourne, your winners here by 20 points, as this was one of the shocks of the year from a true talent perspective. Melbourne looking like they're moving on from the Simon Goodwood era of players and bringing in Stephen King, and Gold Coast now amassing that talent, as I said, like Christian Petrarca. It's directly from Melbourne. Now, Melbourne, I think this proves a lot of people wrong about them. I think they're definitely in the mix. Again, with the wild card in play now, Melbourne sneaking into 9 on 10 could be dangerous. We know, but does that hold up? Because Gold Coast played off the bye this week. They lost to Melbourne. Now, the top 6 have a bye. 7 through 10 are going to be playing in that bye week. It's going to become wildcard week. So 7 and 8 defending those 7th and 8th seeds in the final against 9 and 10. Melbourne, definitely a team I could see sneaking into 8, 9 and 10. Melbourne, definitely a team I could see sneaking into 8, definitely 9 and 10, if not sneaking into 7 or 8 at this rate. Very strong start to the year for Melbourne. Very confident start to the year for Melbourne as well. Gold Coast, as I said, came off the bye, lost. A lot was made about Petrarca. That probably didn't help them going into the game, going into Melbourne, thinking to a team who's going to be in the mix for the last day in September. My player of the game here in this one. Oh, there's a lot of great choices I can give it to. Now, I am going to give it to a player from Melbourne who played a really, really good game. I'm going to give it to Tom Sparrow. He was, again, in and around the contest. 102 AFL fantasy, 21 touches, 11 kicks, 10 handballs, 2 marks, 10 tackles. Pressure there from Tom Sparrow earns him not just my player of the game, but a BJ Show triple-double. And another shout-out as well to Jack Steele, who had a great game. 26 touches, 10 kicks, 16 handballs, 5 marks, 8 tackles, 100 touches, 11 kicks, 11 handballs, 5 marks, 3 tackles, and 32 hitouts. Still one of the best ruckmen in the comp is Max Gawn. Now we move to Sunday night football. Yes, it is Sunday night football again. It is Easter week, so we do have a Sunday night game here on the table. This one was Western Bulldogs versus Essendon. This was a game of, well, it was actually a really interesting game. It was a game of two halves, but it was a very interesting complexion to the game. Bulldogs come out strong, 7 goals in the first, Essendon 1 goal 3. Second quarter, Essendon only 4 points, 3 goals for the Dogs. So we think, oh, this game, it could be quite a blowout. And you think that, and you'd be right to think that. But what it was in fact the very opposite. The Bulldogs just went, we're better than you. We do not need to continue this. They basically put up the white flag. They only scored 7 points in the third quarter, did the Western Bulldogs, to Essendon's 4 goals. And in the final quarter, Bulldogs 14-15-99, Essendon 9-11-65. Bulldogs winning this one by 34 points, in which could have been a lot bigger and a lot more. Now, Essendon, great performance in the second half. I'm really, really, really pleased with this performance. I'm going to get to the Dogs at the moment because I'm not happy. I'm not happy with the Dogs. I am not happy with the Dogs right now. But Essendon, this was a really strong performance in the second half from them. Again, this game could have got away so much more than it did, but they played really, really good footy and they kept it to a respectable margin considering the two teams are heading this season. The other team, the other end of the stick here is the Western Bulldogs. Now, I'm not happy with you, Western Bulldogs. I'm not happy with you at all, Footscray. Here's the thing. Percentage matters. If you lose a couple of games through the mid-season in the back end, you're going to be wanting that percentage from this game. Because let me tell you, other teams are going to play Essendon. Other teams are going to beat Essendon by more, probably a lot more than what you did. So this whole park the bus, throw in the towel, leave it as done idea at half-time may and probably will come back to hurt you come the end of the year. This is not football. You do not go out, especially AFL level. You do not go out after halftime and just have a kick and a catch. You go out and you dominate your opponents. There is something to be said about sportsmanship, yes, but sportsmanship is also not doing this, not going around for a kick and a catch in the second half. Now, there are 2 ways to be embarrassed, and this is probably the worst one. If I'm Essendon coach right now, because my opponent didn't even bother slaughtering me on the table. They went, we are better than you. We are pulling up stumps, kicking a catch footy like it's Tuesday night training down at Whitten Oval. Come on, doggies. Do better. You're gonna win a premiership if you play good footy. You're going to be a top 4 team if you play good footy. You're going to be a top 4 team if you play decent footy. You'll be a top 8 team if you even play, acceptable footy. Right now, that is not good enough. That is pathetic. That is an injustice to what I could go out to put the TV on and watch footy. That is an injustice to people who showed up. Come on, doggies. What is this? Amateurs? Because I've done amateurs and I go out to beat teams when I've coached amateurs. So this is the AFL. Do better. Now, player of the game. And I don't usually do this one. But in a margin like this, you wouldn't think I'd do this. But I'm going to give it to a member of Essendon. My player of the game here, talking about a kick and a catch. It's going to be Archie Roberts from Essendon, 136 AFL fantasy, no goals. That's fine. 37 touches, 29 kicks, 8 handballs and 12 marks for Archie Roberts. And the odd stat of the week, I have to give to Marcus Bontempelli getting a hit out. So, stat of the week is the Bond getting a hit out. Player of the game, Archie Roberts. Well done, Archie. Great game. Now we come to Easter Monday. Easter Monday only means one thing. You sit down, you've got your chockies, you've got your Easter biscuits, you've got your Easter chockies, you've got your chocolate eggs, whatever you got, you've got them ready to go. Now, Easter Monday comes up always at the MCG, and this is one of the greatest games I have not just seen this season, this decade, but my entire life. That is how highly I am rating this game. This game is a 5 out of 5. Two teams that did not give an inch and did not pack it in when the going got tough. Both teams just kept going. This one back and forth all day at the G as it should have been. Quarter by quarter we go. Hawthorn 3 goals in the first to Geelong's 2 goals. Second quarter, Geelong adds 7 goals to Hawthorn's 4. Come out of the big break, Geelong only 1. Final quarter, Geelong add 4, Hawthorn add 3. But here's the thing about AFL, and this is why scoreboard pressure is so important. The difference between these teams is 21 scoring shots to 27. The final score mattered on that. 13-14-92 for Hawthorn. 14-7-91 for Geelong. So if you take the points out, the Cats win the game. But scoring in ones. Now, Fremantle, this is how you score in ones. Jack Gunston scoring in ones off the post in the dying seconds to get Hawthorn over the line, and this was a game that I think is going to be remembered for a long time. So I could go on and on about this game back and forth, especially that final quarter. Hawthorn came out, started well, got a lead. Geelong came back, got the lead again. Hawthorn came back in the last 90 seconds. Hawthorn finally got over the line on Easter Monday like a long time. Now, so many options for player of the game here. But based on just the end of the game and what the end of the game meant for them and their club, I have to give it to McDonald, giving it to Connor McDonald of Hawthorn. 106 AFL fantasy, 26 touches, 6 AFL fantasy, 26 touches, 18 kicks, 8 handballs, 8 marks, and 3 tackles. But he was in the mix all day, helping the Hawks get over the line. Other names for Hawthorn were the Wizard as well. He had a great game. Nick Watson, especially at the death goals, 3 crucial goals from him as well. Jack Ginnivan was all over the park. He scored 3 goals, 4. So Hawthorn all over the place. Best players for the Cats. Bailey Smith was an absolute runaway best player on ground for the Cats. Max Holmes had a great outing. Lawson Humphries, Tom Stewart, Tanner Bruin. Jeremy Cameron was a bit off, a little bit disappeared as well. Jeremy Cameron. Zach Guthrie was around the mark. Ryan Myers was good. Mike Blitzos played a good game. Jed Bowes was good. Shannon Neal, great. 4 goals from Shannon Neal. Nearly got the Cats over the line. So, again, players all over the park performing. Neither team backing an inch. That is what we love to see. Now it's time to go to Adelaide. Everyone gather round in South Australia. It is round 5 this year, gather round, and we have the Festival of Footy in the footy state. Sorry, West Australia. Sorry, Victoria. South Australia is the footy state. Scared to face us in state of origin, and if you did, you'd both lose because South Australia is the best state at this game. I ain't making this up. We are better than Victoria. We are better than West Australia, and I would like one of them to actually show up and try and beat us and prove that we're not. But clearly, the state of origin game between West Australia and Victoria will say that over and over again. I don't care about politics. I don't care about marketing. I don't care about booking. Joel was scared to face South Australia, and South Australia has gather round. So here we go, gather round for my gather round predictions. Thursday night, Adelaide versus Carlton. Adelaide, the heavy favourites in this one. I've tipped the Crows here. I've tipped them by 35, and this one could be a lot more, but I'm going to give respect to Carlton here. I think Carlton are going to come back at some point. Gather round could be that point for them. Friday night football, Collingwood and Fremantle. I've tipped the Dirty Dockers. Now, they've saved the day here last week. They know Adelaide Oval is fresh in their minds. Collingwood a little shaky. Fremantle probably up there to beat them. So I've tipped the Dockers coming off that strong performance against Adelaide here last week. Saturday at Barossa Park. It's happened again. A case of deja blue. North Melbourne and Brisbane, the gather round. It seems like the gather round spectacular at this point. I have had to go with the Lions here. North Melbourne, young, exciting, great team to watch, but Brisbane, premiership class, puts them ahead in this one. Back to Adelaide Oval, Essendon versus Melbourne. Melbourne, very good to watch, very exciting team. I love Jack Steele at the moment. He's a very, very exciting player. He's very much on form at the moment. Max Gawn has returned to his former class as well. So for that reason, Melbourne over in the early game. Now we jump to Norwood Oval for the Swans and the Gold Coast Suns. And this one is the real toss-up of gather round, one of the real toss-ups of gather round, along with Collingwood and Fremantle. Here at Norwood Oval, I have gone for the Gold Coast Suns. I just think that they are a little bit ahead of Sydney on class at the moment. And Sydney, although they did come off the big win over West Coast, I think Gold Coast will be hungry for a win to bounce back from losing to Melbourne. So Gold Coast it is for me at Norwood Oval. Now we go back to Adelaide Oval for Saturday night, Hawthorn and the West Hawthorn. Now Western Bulldogs, they've lost a few key names. They've lost Tim English, for example. That's going to be a big out for the Doggies. Hawthorn still relatively full strength and playing good form coming off the win on Easter Monday against the Cats. Now we move to gather round Sunday. First up, we go to Norwood Oval, where we have Geelong and West Coast in this one. As much as West Coast has been exciting to watch, this one is really a no-brainer for me. The Cats in this one. We move all the way out to Lyndoch again at Barossa Park for GWS and Richmond. Now, despite their position on the ladder, GWS in 16th, Richmond in 18th. GWS are the ones I take here. Richmond still very banged up over that opening course of games. So GWS, the more proven team, should get a result in Lyndoch. And our final game for gather round in 2000 is St Kilda. We'll put Adelaide versus St Kilda. I've tipped St Kilda coming off the bye. I know I say the bye doesn't win, but St Kilda look like a class team this year. I know they're behind the power on the ladder right now, but with the early buys, we're just starting to see where everyone shakes up. At the moment of tip St Kilda, I could switch that over to the power on Sunday morning. That one is going to be a late game, a 6:45 start at Adelaide Oval. So to refresh and go through them all over again, we've gone Adelaide, Fremantle, Brisbane, Melbourne, Gold Coast, Hawthorn, Geelong, GWS, being back here after gather round to review all the great stuff that happened in the AFL over gather round week. And I hope you come back to the BJ show so we can gather round to check out the results.
Well, thank you so much as well. I'm going to make sure Aiden joins in. Maybe not in this episode. We'll absolutely, he'll have his moments to share his thoughts, reviews from the Easter round, as well previews from the gutter. Thank you for watching and listening. Much appreciated for all of the appreciation of that. Next week we'll share all the gutter round reviews and previews into round number 6. Whoa. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a like and stay tuned for the next week's gutter round reviews. Thanks for watching. That's all, folks. Cheers. Peace.